Hey guys, this is EckhartsLadder. Hello and welcome to another Star Wars video. Today we are returning to the Versus series and putting the TIE Defender, arguably the greatest Imperial starfighter of all time, against the X-83 Twintail, Legacy's final installment in the X-Wing series. So this is a battle of the juggernauts, but also one which sees 100+ years of technological development. Will that be enough to bring the Twintail to victory? Let's discuss. A couple of notes before I get into today's video. I've changed how I do versus videos on the channel. I focus less on numbers, although they are still important, and more on a holistic appraisal of the two starfighters when compared. Numbers can be important, especially when they both come from the same source. However, I also think it's just important to think about the strengths and weaknesses of each starfighter and how they compare. On that note, and I should have mentioned this earlier, before I continue, right now down in the comments, let me know which starfighter you think will come ahead. Then after you've watched the video, let me know in an edited comment or a second comment whether you agree with me, whether I changed your mind, or whatever else. The other thing I want to mention is that I would like to do more versus videos. I've had sort of a bad experience with people just getting really unhappy with how I decided certain battles. There's a surprising amount of not quite vitriol but close in the space battle versus community, and I won't lie, that did drive me away for a while. However, I'm just a few weeks away from the birth of my second child, and I'd really like to record just audio only versus videos, maybe with some gameplay in the background that you guys can enjoy, which will be a bit easier for me to produce. They require a lot of research, but if I do them that way, they'll be light on editing. Anyway, let's get started, and the first step of this versus process is to examine both starships in depth. We'll start off with the X-83. The X-83 appears in the Star Wars Legacy comic series as a future successor to the X-Wing. According to the Legacy era campaign guide for the Star Wars Wizards of the Coast tabletop RPG, the X-83 was a cutting-edge starfighter, even by the Legacy era standards, which again was 130 years after the Battle of Yavin. Interestingly enough, the X-83 wasn't planned exclusively for Galactic Alliance use, and before being banned by the re-emergent Empire, saw some service within civilian markets. Like the predecessor X-Wing, the X-83 is an impressive combination of durability and firepower, with, I'd argue, durability being the main impressive feature when compared to other contemporary starfighters. According to the Starships of the Galaxy guide, the X-83 has shields comparable in strength to some transports and light frigates, while it boasts a stronger hull than most shuttlecraft. It continues to say it is small, dense, and tough. It can take a beating, and its shields can absorb a large amount of damage before they fail, making the X-83 a good choice for frontline combat. And that's sort of how you can distinguish an X-83 from an interceptor. It's quite similar to the X-Wing and the A-Wing. Both guides sort of suggest that the vehicle takes a lot of damage, while smaller, nimble craft sort of rely on avoiding damage as a whole. As I mentioned though, the X-83 was also very well armed. It had 4 what the guides call heavy blaster cannons and a proton torpedo launcher, giving it some good versatility against both capital ships and enemy starfighters. Of course, the capital ship bit doesn't matter here. Maybe we could evaluate the effectiveness of the craft overall someday, but today we are looking at how the X-83 would face off against a TIE Defender. We'll look at that ship in a second, but continuing with the X-83, the vessel was also maneuverable. For some reason, the nacelle being separated from the body adds maneuverability in the Star Wars universe. And just generally, even within its era, the X-83 could be expected, in the hands of a good pilot, to beat any other starfighter in one-on-one combat, with very limited, if any, exceptions. But is one of those exceptions the TIE Defender? Well, let's cover that vessel now. The TIE Defender is, in my opinion, without doubt, the greatest TIE fighter to ever exist in the Star Wars Legends continuity. It was so good that the mere existence of the project threatened to cause a doctrinal rift within the Imperial Navy, with ardent supporters of large capital ships being afraid that the TIE Defender would lead to the Empire relying solely on starfighters and carriers to beat down the Rebel Alliance, and that may not have been the worst idea ever. Unfortunately for the Empire, the TIE Defender was so expensive to make that it never did see widespread production, with only one squadron of starfighters being present at the Battle of Endor, but they really could have changed everything. Let's talk about why. As with the Twintail, the TIE Defender is an unholy combination of firepower, speed, and durability. Let's talk about firepower, and I think the TIE Defender actually outgunned the Twintail with its 6 wing-mounted cannons. 4 of these cannons were used for lasers, while the final wing and the last 2 cannons were used for ion shots. This is a really good combination because it allows the TIE Defender to wear down an enemy starfighter's shield, then either disable the ship or destroy it at will. Additionally, the TIE Defender did also have a munitions launcher and would typically carry proton torpedoes. When it comes to durability, the TIE Defender wouldn't have matched up against the Twintail in that aspect alone, but it was still more durable than comparable multi-role fighters of its era like the X-Wing, which is really impressive considering the final point I want to talk about for this sort of trio of firepower, durability, and speed, and that's the fact that the TIE Defender, according to the SAG edition of the Starships of the Galaxy Guide, is much faster than any other TIE variant in existence, which is incredibly impressive given the fact that that book also considers the TIE Predator, and that the TIE Defender was going up against unshielded ships like the Interceptor. So there was a lot of really expensive technology put into this ship, but the Defender was not only fast, but also incredibly maneuverable. I'll read another quote from the book. An array of maneuvering jets on each of the Defender's 3 wing assemblies allows it to perform turns, dives, and complex acrobatic maneuvers with ease, with games like X-Wing Alliance, which I've been including footage of here, making the TIE Defender more maneuverable than even the Interceptor, which relied almost solely on maneuverability and speed to survive. The main issue with the TIE Defender was its cost and the maintenance requirements for every mission, but that doesn't really come into play here. And with that being said, let's now move into the actual matchup, and this is interesting. Although the X-83 Twintail does have 100+ years of technological progress on the TIE Defender, these are 2 very different ships. The Twintail, although very advanced, was still a ship that saw regular production, while the TIE Defender pretty much vastly outperformed any other ship of its era and was almost prohibitively expensive to make and maintain. That almost equalizes things in my mind. This is an interesting matchup because arguably both of these fighters do all 3 key aspects of a starfighter really well: durability, firepower, and speed/maneuverability, although each fighter also arguably has one key point where it excels. For the Twintail, that seems to be durability and defense. It's not only very well protected, but also described as compact, whereas the TIE Defender manages to pack an incredible amount of technology into a ship that is still incredibly fast and almost unbelievably maneuverable. I'm leaning toward the TIE Defender in this matchup, and I'll explain why. I think the TIE Defender is one of the only ships which can actually neutralize the Twintail's incredible defenses. It has 4 laser cannons, that alone is as much or more than most starfighters, guns which in the RPG guide are actually rated higher than the Twintails, and it also has an ion cannon which will help specifically get through the shields, plus torpedoes if needed. However, there's also no doubt that the X-83, if it is able to shoot the TIE Defender, will be able to destroy it as well. I mean, the TIE Defender is well shielded, but not as well shielded, and there is all that technological progress to account for as well. So to me, as with most starfighter battles, the question here is which ship is going to get behind the other one, which ship is more effective at dogfighting. And this is why I tend to lean towards the TIE Defender. The Twintail is great, especially as an all-around vessel, but as the guides explain, it's clearly spec'd out to be a frontline fighter, to aid in taking down capital ships, to provide cover for more nimble vessels. Here, those strengths are neutralized by the fact that this is a dogfight. It's a one-on-one battle, and even though the Twintail is described described as being one of the most fast and maneuverable vessels of its era, I just don't think it can keep up with the pure agility and aggressiveness of the TIE Defender. That ship can pull off maneuvers that arguably no other vessel in Star Wars can, and that's what I think will be the major difference here. So that's why I'll give this victory to the TIE Defender, which I think will be a somewhat controversial choice given the massive technological gap between these two ships. Although 100 years of technology in Star Wars can sometimes be a lot or sometimes not a lot, it really depends. But I'll summarize my argument for the TIE Defender, and I'll avoid all attempts to be neutral at this point. Because the TIE Defender has 2 ion cannons and 4 pretty heavy laser cannons, it belongs to the fairly limited class of ships which can neutralize the Twintail's really impressive durability. Durability which actually makes it maybe better as an all-around fighter, but which isn't going to help it in this battle. However, removing that doesn't give the TIE Defender an edge per se, because the Twintail will be able to destroy the Defender as well. The Imperial ship gets the win because I think the Defender throughout Star Wars history is unmatched in terms of speed and maneuverability. It was really a starfighter so good that no one could afford to make or maintain it, and I don't think the Twintail, at least in its current configuration, is the starfighter to take it down. Now, I think if Incom wanted to produce a starfighter within that era to take down the TIE Defender specifically, a straight up dogfighting vessel, that they could have, but I don't think that's the X-83, I don't think it's the Crossfire or anything else. So all in all, for those reasons, and including my uncertainty about the difference in technology, I'll give this battle to the TIE Defender 7 times out of 10. Just my opinion though. Curious to hear what you guys thought of this matchup down below. Did I change your opinion? Did your opinion stay the same? Make sure to let me know all of that in a comment. Please and thank you, and like this video if you liked it. Also guys, if you have any other versus matchups you'd like to see, please include them under the pinned comment, and just I hope to hear from you guys. Until next time, please be safe, have a good one, and may the Force be with you.